Whoa! Whoa! Right. Video time. Huh. Well, welcome to VincentVision. Good afternoon. Happy Halloween Horror Nights season. Welcome to the latest episode of VincentVision. We're trying something new for this video. It's currently Monday afternoon, and I have just had another successful weekend at Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights. I've currently been at the event every weekend that it has been going on, so I have been able to go through the haunted houses multiple times, and I kind of wanted to put all my thoughts into a video and essentially review all the haunted houses. Normally I'm out in the parks doing stuff, checking out events and so on and so forth, but I actually wanted to sit down this time around, try something a little different, a little bit more vlog type. I'm also a little sick, so I just don't want to go out, so that's kind of why I'm staying home. I really want to do a spoiler-filled review, alright? I want to go through, in as much detail as possible, all of the haunted houses at this year's Halloween Horror Nights, which, by the way, is a pretty fantastic year. We've got 10 haunted houses for the first time ever, 5 IPs, 5 original ideas, perfect split down the middle. Now, before we get into it, I need to preface this video with a little disclaimer. I might go into review for some of the haunted houses. I'm definitely going to talk about things that I love about them, but I might talk about some things that I don't love. Regardless of that, Halloween Horror Nights is still the best Halloween event anywhere. Period. The worst haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights is still 50,000 times better than a haunted house anywhere else, okay? Don't think that I'm hating on it for no reason, or I'm just being picky, or I'm being snooty. No, that's not the case. I'm just sharing my thoughts on this year's houses. Obviously, spoilers, for sure. If you are going to Halloween Horror Nights and you don't want to be spoiled about what may or may not happen in some of these haunted houses, go ahead and stop watching, or keep watching. Just put it on mute, because I want the views, so that would be really nice. I'd appreciate that. All right, let's get this started. So the first house that is closest to the entrance is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. And this one is actually pretty okay. I wasn't really expecting much from this haunted house. This is the third time we've had Michael Myers here at Halloween Horror Nights. The first haunted house was awesome. Super intense, super cool. The second one was not as great. And then the third one, this one, is actually not too bad. It's in the Shrek Theater, so it's a little bit of a smaller space, but you're going through the events of the fourth movie, which I personally have never seen, but I have been told by many people that it's not the best Halloween movie, so I don't feel bad skipping out. And besides, I think with Michael Myers, you don't really need to watch all of these Halloween movies to understand what's going on in this haunted house, which is that Michael Myers is trying to kill you. And he shows up a lot in this haunted house. He definitely shows up at least like 20 times in the haunted house, and from beginning to end, there are a lot of cool rooms. Like the way that it starts, you go in and you're in some sort of asylum, and they're talking about Michael Myers over the speakers. He's like, oh, I don't like that Michael Myers guy. And then there are some asylum inmates that come out, and they're really good. They're actually really intense. They pop out of the bars. It's a classic sort of Halloween scare. But one room that really stands out for me in this haunted house is the room where it's all black, and Michael Myers' bed is laid out there, and he's there with the bandaged mask, and he's standing there, and the lights will dim, and they'll come back up, and it'll be like, boom, and he'll be right in front of you. And that's a really cool effect. That is a really intense moment, and I think all of the Michael Myerses in this haunted house really are pretty intense. Every single time I've been able to go through, they've been working really hard, and I think that is what is important for this type of house, where Michael Myers, you know, he isn't really that scary anymore. He's not like a scary figure. He's too iconic to be scary, I think. It's important that they bring their all and they get up in your face with Michael Myers, especially since a lot of the time it's really taller, bigger dudes, and I think that's really cool with this haunted house. The end is a little weird. It's kind of a big open space, which is nice to see. I don't think I've seen an open space in the Shrek Theater. You're out in the fields, there's some lights, Sam Loomis comes out with the gun, shoots Michael Myers. Classic ending. Not too bad of a house. Definitely the performers make that house what it is. As soon as you get out of Halloween 4, we're going to go up into the New York section of the park, get to the sound stages, where we can, of course, talk about the big haunted house this year, Stranger Things. Stranger Things is in Soundstage 22. It's where The Shining was last year, so it's a bit of a smaller soundstage. It starts out like the first episode of Stranger Things, where it's sort of like a cold open. You go in, you're immediately in the laboratory of Hawkins' lab, and it's boo doo doo doo, and the Demogorgon pops out right off the bat. So you see the Demogorgon. It's just like this tall guy with a big open face. It's super, super cool, super scary. They have the scientist's legs dangling. There's a button you can press, and it'll shake around. And then it does my least favorite, which is aka the scariest type of Horror Night scare that they've been doing recently, is a tiny little room in between rooms where it's like this thin, like curtains on one side, curtains on the other. You go in, and then there's something right there, and the Demogorgon pops out. I hate that. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It scares me all the time. Once that's done, you go into a black room, and the Stranger Things logo is there. It's like, it's very cool. Really makes you feel like you're going into an episode of the show. And then the rest of the haunted house is you kind of just going through major scenes and sets from the show. You go through the forest, you go into Joyce's house, you go into the laboratory and the Upside Down and stuff like that. The haunted house, the only big monster in the haunted house is obviously the Demogorgon, just like in season 1. The characters will pop out every so often, you know, Dustin or the kids and stuff like that. And they'll be like, Will, Will, Will. Will is the word of the day at that haunted house. Everyone's looking for Will. I will say, it is pretty impressive how well done the performers look like the characters. Like, I remember the first time I went through, Dustin popped out, and I looked at him like, oh my god, that's the kid. That's the Dustin boy. That was really, really cool. Haunted House, though, as far as scares, is definitely not the scariest. Stranger Things is so iconic, you know? People love the characters, they love the story. The Demogorgon popping out is definitely startling at moments, but I don't think it's entirely frightening. You're gonna be going through that haunted house going, oh man, that's cool, oh, this is cool, versus like, oh my god, this is scary, I gotta get out of here. I think my favorite part of that haunted house is when you're in the school, because it looks like an actual school. And then you go through, and they have a wall where it's just like a regular wall, but then the lights change and the Demogorgon's behind it. And you look into a classroom, and you see 11 there, pushing back the Demogorgon with her power. She's like, whoa, like that. And he's moving and stuff like that, but it's clearly a doll, like a puppet, a mannequin rather, of 11 doing that. 11 only shows up in this haunted house one time, at the end, like a performer. And it's kind of like, not really doing anything, she's kind of just standing there. And you're like, you shaved your head for that, lady? Obviously, it's going to be the most popular house all year. It's a very, very cool house if you are a fan of Stranger Things. If you don't know anything about Stranger Things for some reason, maybe that 2-hour wait is not for you, because trust me, that thing has been 2 hours every single day. It's bonkers. But then, when you get out of Stranger Things, you head out back into the street, and then you have 3 more haunted houses right around the corner. And the first one you can do is called Carnival Graveyard, Rust in Pieces. And this one is pretty nice, actually. It's a very, very pretty house. I don't think it was that scary. I don't think it's that scary. There are some moments that is a little intense, and there's like, definitely didn't expect, but this is a beautiful house. This reminds me a lot of Dead Waters last year, where it was you went through and you were like, wow, this is so awesome, but it wasn't really that intense as far as scares. I will say what it is different than Dead Waters last year is that this one is very, very long. This house feels like it goes on forever. And if I'm correct, this actually shares a soundstage with another haunted house, Scary Tales. So it's crazy to me that this house feels as long as it does when it's not using an entire soundstage. But you're basically going through an abandoned graveyard. There's tons of little Easter eggs and references all throughout. There's a skull from last year, Festival of the Deadliest Skull, sitting down somewhere. There's a Jack the Clown, sort of sun piece, all little things like that scattered throughout the house that if you keep your eyes out and about, you'll definitely notice as a Halloween Horror Nights fan. All the characters in this one are carnies, and they're all dressed up in different ways. Everyone looks unique. All the costumes look fantastic and cool, but just really not that scary. The best part of this haunted house is the end of the haunted house, because that's a real shame, because that's really the only part that really starts to explore that abandoned carnival type thing. Everything else you've been kind of going through has been just kind of metal halls with a bunch of salvage scrap everywhere, but the last part of the haunted house, you enter an abandoned tunnel of love, and there's kind of mirrors everywhere, and then these two guys come out, one with a mask, the guy and a girl, they come out and they start making out and scare people, and it's really fun. And then you go through like an abandoned funhouse type deal where everything is neon, and they have people hiding behind mirrors and using mirrors to disorient you, and that is like, oh my god, now we're in the abandoned carnival. But then it ends as soon as you get out of that creepy funhouse, and I'm like, oh man. And it kind of just ends. You know, you head out and there's a doll display, and that's it. It's a really beautiful house, and I think it definitely shows the difference between the work that is put into a Halloween Horror Nights house versus just any regular haunted house anywhere else, but it's definitely not the scariest. This one has had low waits throughout the nights that I've been going, and I think it'll be like that for a while, but still, pretty cool house. Definitely still check it out, because it is pretty pretty. But, like I was saying a little earlier, there's another haunted house right next to it, Scary Tales, Deadly Ever After, and that one's pretty fantastic. Scary Tales has been at Halloween Horror Nights forever. It's been there for many, many years. They've been doing it since 2001, and it's been making reappearances as haunted houses, as scare zones, all throughout the event, and this year it's back as another haunted house. This is the Wicked Witch has taken over, and you know, exactly what you would expect from some sort of fairy tale themed haunted houses, bunch of different rooms, bunch of different fairy tales, but done scary. But it's really awesome, and the best part of this haunted house is easily when you go into the room for the first time and you see the entrance. It's a giant 2-story castle, and it's this big open space with this map behind you with like lights and colors pulsing, and the Wicked Witch, as she's up there monologuing about the chaos reigns, and she flies. She can fly, she jumps and swings around you, flies above your head, and you're like, oh my god, this is gonna be intense. This is gonna be amazing. And it's pretty okay for the most part. I think the Scary Tales idea is very, very predictable, and I think, you know, you kind of know what you're gonna get with it. The performers are really awesome. Something I do like about this haunted house is there's a lot of puppets. There is a Wizard of Oz dungeon that you go through, and then the lion comes out from the corner, and I hate puppets. So every time that lion popped out, and rah, I freaked out. But everything else is kind of what you would expect. Doesn't mean that it's not scary, but you kind of go through and you go, oh, this is the 3 Little Pigs. Oh, this is, you know, Rapunzel or whatever, and things like that. Which is nice because, you know, I'd rather people go through a haunted house and know what this is versus go through something and be like, I have no idea what's going on. I like the Little Mermaid area. I think that's a really, really cool thing. You go into like a room and there's like screens of water, and I think that is a really cool little warm-up room. Finale is actually really kind of the best part, where you go, it's sort of the end, and you go through a mirror maze, which I love mirror mazes. Go through, and then the witch is popping out from all the different corners, and then she's like, die! And she like comes out like on a bungee cord at you. It's a very, very intense moment. But then you get out of the haunted house, and behind a pillar comes out the bear! The bear! Big bear from a couple years ago. HHN28 comes out, and everyone, you scream, and it's fun to see, and it's like a little pandering fan service for all those Halloween Horror Nights fans, because, well, Scary Tales has been with the event for a long time, so why not? Overall, Scary Tales, really awesome house. It's one that I have been doing every single night because it is pretty cool, and it gets a pretty decently low wait towards the end of the night if you're able to do it. But right next to that haunted house is my personal favorite haunted house of the year. That's right, folks. It's here. We're talking about Poltergeist. The haunted house, man. Whew. So scary. And it takes place inside of Soundstage 25, which is the soundstage they used for the Walking Dead mega house a couple of years back. And this house really does feel like a mega house. It goes on forever and ever and ever. And the cool thing is, it goes through some of the notes of the movie, different things like that, but it really takes its own form, and it does its own version of the story. You start at the pool of the house, and he's like, you moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies. And you go, and it's like this super claustrophobic bodies coming out of coffins. It's very, very scary, and that's the first sort of part of the haunted house. You go in, and there's bodies everywhere, and the beast shows up all the time. A lot of puppets in this haunted house, a lot of big masks and stilts. They really kind of did everything that you've ever seen in a Halloween Horror Nights haunted house. They put it in this haunted house, which is so, so cool. My favorite part of this haunted house is when you go into the kid's bedroom and the tree is busted out, and they have wind and water, like, And then you go into the closet, and you go into the light, and there's this tunnel that's like made out of drapes and fabric, and it's like really kind of small, but there's actors that are hidden in it, and they're camouflaged so well. They come out, and it's super, super scary. Poltergeist is awesome. I would absolutely make time for this haunted house. In my opinion, I think this house should be the flagship haunted house of this year. Stranger Things is fantastic, and if you're a Stranger Things fan, more power to you, but Poltergeist is scary, and it delivers. So, love me some Poltergeist. Whew. Man, talking about haunted houses really gets your throat dry. But let's keep going. So those are all the soundstage haunted houses. Those are all the haunted houses at the front of the park. Now, we're going to go all the way to the other side of the park, where the tents are and the parade buildings. We're going to get to our first house, which is next to Academy of Villains, The Horrors of Blumhouse. Last year's had Sinister, Purge, Insidious. This one is Happy Death Day and The Purge. Gosh, I don't even know how many times The Purge has been in Halloween Horror Nights so far, but it's back. But this one's based off The First Purge, which is about The First Purge. This haunted house is just okay. I've actually never seen Happy Death Day. I've never seen The First Purge, so I didn't really understand what's going on. I'm sure if I had seen those, I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. I understand what Happy Death Day is about. It's basically Groundhog Day. This girl's getting killed by this guy, the babyface killer. But the haunted house is just okay. The sets are really nice. There's a part where you go into a room and it's a party and there's a... I think that's kind of fun. I like when houses have like a fun element to it. Other than that, the Happy Death Day part really wasn't that remarkable. And you go into the Purge, which they do this thing that I really like, is the transition room, where it's a bunch of screens everywhere and it's... However I feel about the Purge, I love that screen where it's like, this is a emergency broadcast. The Purge is about to commence, and that sound and boom, boom. I love that, and they do that, and that got me. I got excited about the Purge. I was like, oh, here we go. The house is okay. It's just okay. There's a room where it's all mannequins, and I was like, oh, this is scary. There's a bunch of mannequins everywhere, and I thought that was going to be a really good opportunity to scare you. But they don't really scare you. I thought there would be like a mannequin person. I know it's kind of like a cheap thrill, but it was just okay. Just people popping out, you in masks with guns, you going through houses. This house is just okay. This, I would think right now, is definitely the least exciting of the houses this year. But hey, gotta love corporate synergy, right? So we get out of Blumhouse, you head towards Men in Black, and then there are two haunted houses there. Slaughter Cinema and Dead Exposure, Patient Zero. Slaughter Cinema is what we're gonna do next. That one is pretty awesome. That one's a lot of fun. It is an abandoned drive-in, and you're going through and they're showing you all these fun B movies. Slaughter Cinema reminds me a lot of older Halloween Horror Nights haunted houses. Things like HR Blood and Guts, you know, even Run from a couple years ago. All the different themed rooms. It was very, very fun house. Wasn't terribly scary. There are some moments where you're like, ah, pops out. This one's just kind of the fun house, I think. Definitely worth doing every single time you're there, just because it is fun to go through it. But this one for me is kind of just meh. Appreciate all the work that's put into it. It's a very, very funny house, very clever. There is a room where you're going through a movie called Shitty's Kids, and it's like an arcade, and the carpet is like an arcade and everything, and it looks just like it. It feels like a little arcade room. It's super, super cool. And that one's actually kind of scary because it's a little room that you go into, and it's like a look in, smile, and take a picture, and you go down, and the kid goes, ah! It's a very loud house. The Cult of the Beast Baby room is probably my favorite in that haunted house. It's the mirror room where everything is one color, and then all of a sudden the lighting change happens, and they're all in your face, and the Beast Baby is there with its red eyes and a cage. That's a really cool room, very, very cool. And then it ends with you going through the Revenge of the Swamp Yeti, which is one of my biggest fears. Not Swamp Yetis, just really, really tall guys in costumes who get up in your face, and I'm like, ah, man, that was scary. But other than that, not that intense of a house, but really fun, cool house to go through. I definitely go through that all the time, and that one usually gets a pretty high weight throughout the night just because it's such a cool concept that people want to check out. Then, right next to Slaughter Cinema is probably my number 2 house of the year right now, Dead Exposure. Oh my god. Dead Exposure. Patient Zero. Ooh, this one is cool. It takes place in France, and this is like a prequel to one of my favorite haunted houses many, many years ago in 2008, the original Dead Exposure. And it's a pretty cool concept if you're not familiar with it. In the original Dead Exposure, you are going through these photographs, and it's done as if the whole haunted house is black. And it is done as if you are in a photograph, and then when the flash of the light bulb, that's your only source of light, all the monsters pop out in front of you, and that's the only way you can see. And this one is a lot like that as well, but it's done in a different way. You're sick, you're getting vaccinated, and the side effect of the vaccination is temporary blindness. So that's kind of how they swing it and make it similar to the first Dead Exposure. And this one is pretty intense because of that. This one is definitely meant to disorient you. So you're going through and you really can't see anything. And then when the strobes come on, you can kind of get a vague idea of the space that you're in, but then all of a sudden there's a zombie monster in your face and you're like, ah! It's pretty intense. They also do something that I really like in haunted houses, which gets me scared all the time because there's no characters involved whatsoever. They do like what I call the gunshots, or to like the darts of air that go and there's a part where you're going through the city and I guess you're getting shot at because they think you're a zombie, and you're like, ah! You're like, that always freaks me out because you never know when to expect it. But since the house is so disorienting and you really can't see anything, there's not a lot of detail in the haunted house. There's really not much to look for. Your best option in this haunted house is to just go through, try to figure out where you are, don't get lost, but you will get scared. This is definitely the scariest haunted house. Poltergeist is my favorite. I think it's one of the best, if not the best of the year, but I think Dead Exposure right now is the scariest one. So once you've done Dead Exposure, you go through The Simpsons, you got all the chainsaws and things like that, and then you head to the E.T. area where you've got our two last haunted houses. Trick or Treat and Seeds of Extinction. And Seeds of Extinction is actually a little bit of a surprise. When they first announced it, they're like, oh, it's a haunted house about the plants and they have taken over, and I'm like, okay, whatever. But going through this haunted house, this is actually right up there with one of my favorite haunted houses for this year. This house gives me big Scarecrow vibes. If you remember Scarecrow the Reaping from last year, it was such an intense, scary, claustrophobic house because you couldn't see where the performers were, and it was just, I don't know, a lot of noises, which always kind of freaked me out. This house has all of that. You're going through an abandoned mall, and it's really detailed. There's supposed to be a ton of references to a bunch of previous Halloween Horror Nights icons and haunted houses and things like that, but it's a little hard to see with how dark it is in there. It's so dark, you can't see the performers, who are essentially all just in some form of a ghillie suit that they camouflage so well, so they really do pop out of nowhere, and you're like, ah! A lot of wind, a lot of rain in this haunted house. One room that I like in particular is you're going outside and the wind is blowing, and you look above and there's a giant crashed plane, and a stilt walker comes out, and he looks so scary for some reason. Just this particular plant monster looks really scary. And the haunted house goes into this art gallery, this sort of photo museum that is about the Dust Bowl. You know, the Dust Bowl from Scarecrow the Reaping. And this is definitely like, oh, this is the Scarecrow part. All the lights are there, and the actors are really close, and they like come out. A lot of little hand puppets in this haunted house. There's a tilted floor in this one, which is kind of okay. I like that they have characters in that area that can kind of come out and scare you, but it's really never as intense as it could be because obviously they don't want to scare people so bad that they roll down the tilted floor. And this house kind of just ends. You go through a room and there's like some pods, some big kind of Little Shop of Horror pods hanging above you. And there's a guy who comes out at the end, the last minute, kind of scared, just like a lot of the haunted houses this year. Pretty solid haunted house, and it gets a pretty manageable wait time throughout the night, so I would definitely do that all the time because it can be pretty intense and you really don't see where they are going. And then after you leave Seeds of Extinction, you have to walk all the way down the street, outside of the park, back into the park, so you can get in line for the last haunted house and have to go all the way back up. Trick or Treat! This one's pretty cool. They had the Scare Zone last year that I think worked really well, and I think this as a haunted house works pretty well as well, but this definitely was not one of the scariest haunted houses. I think this one in particular suffers from icon syndrome, where the main character of the haunted house is so recognizable and so popular that it's really not that scary. Sam shows up in this haunted house a lot, and I think he's the main source of scares. It's really not, you know, you see Sam and you go, oh yeah, there he is. So you don't really get that scared of him. But the haunted house is done really well. I especially like the beginning very, very much, where you go into the old man's house. He's fighting Sam already. He's got a gun, and there's this really cool effect where the actor has like a Sam on him, and he like kind of comes out of the door, and it looks really convincing. It's really fun. You're like, oh, he's really fighting Sam. And you go into his room, and they have the pumpkin there with the fire that comes out, and they use this cool like mist or fog or something effect to make it look like fire is coming out of the pumpkin, and the whole room changes colors. I think that's a really, really cool thing. I also love the quarry with the crashed bus at the end. That's a really big open room, and it makes you feel like you're down there. But this particular house is so foggy. Oh my god, it works really well in that last room, but I think it kind of just seeps into the rest of the haunted house. It's so hot and foggy in there. Just like, oh man. Other than that, it's pretty okay. Not the scariest, but really well done. If you're a fan of Trick or Treat, it is cool to go through and see all the different rooms and stuff like that. Woo! Yes! And that's all the haunted houses. Oh man. Regardless of my personal thoughts on some moments from each of the haunted houses, I think this year in particular is probably one of the best that we have had in a long time. And you know what? Even without Bill and Ted. That's right. I truly do believe these houses are super strong. I think the streets are fantastic. Oh my god. I had no expectation for the streets when we first announced them and sort of started hearing about them. But once I started going every night and seeing all the performers and how the streets worked out, it was awesome. Killer Clowns is great. Vamp 85 is great. Chucky is fantastic. I think HHN28 is a really good year, and that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is my first time doing this type of video. I kind of liked it. Feels a little weird. I think I'm going to stick to going outside and seeing things for myself. But I hope I brought up some good points. I hope I brought up some good discussion topics for those who have been to Horror Nights already. Some things you may agree with me, some things you may disagree with. If you have any of those, please go into the comments and tell me. I would love to hear about it. For those who have not gone to Horror Nights and watched this video, I hope this helped as well. I hope this kind of got you hyped up, got you excited for this year if you are going, and if you didn't get to go, well, I hope this kind of helped you as well. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching Vincent Vision. Please be sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. Go ahead and watch my Halloween Horror Nights video of the first night there. I'll try to make some more videos, but I can't make any promises. Watch some of my other videos as well if you haven't. Haunt season has just started. We are gonna do a lot more Halloween events here in Florida. You better believe it. But until then, thank you guys for watching Vincent Vision, and have a good night. That was a cape, like if I was a Dracula.